Okay.
It worked perfect. First time, perfect. So,
That's good.
hello,
Hi. Hello.
welcome. Welcome to
Thank you.
our seventh AgoraLive talk. Uh, First question, of course, are you in the office?
Yes.
It's that Orizzontale studio.
Yes,
Can you
it's
can you
Orizzontale.
show, can you do like a 360 or
Yeah, of course. Here is the entrance. Here's our plant spot. Then we have, well, some stuffs, materials. Then in front of
bicycles?
me, bicycles, yeah, like
Of
this.
course.
Then we have, well, screws, um, yeah, tools,
Stuff.
tools, cows, oops. And over there is the co-working
Okay.
and the office. We are a lot of people here. Well, not now, but it's called La Segheria. It was a former wood,
Okay.
not well, wood workshop.
Mm-hmm.
And then we decided together with other people to make a co-working and a working space, but also a space to host people, friends, and so
Cool.
this is now the place. Now it's a little bit, yeah, in a state of kind of a mess, but yeah, no, both.
It's not a mess, it's creative. It's a
Yes,
creative environment.
it's a creative environment, and also we are making some
Adjustments.
changes because um, well, you know, after this now in Roma we are facing phase 3, I think, of
Mm-hmm.
this situation, and so everything is coming a little bit to a new kind of normal. Which what is normal, I don't know, but
Yeah.
yeah, we are gonna change a little bit the
The
spaces
space.
and to
Okay.
reset a little
Yeah.
bit. Yes.
We are facing this. We have a like a similar shared place here. It's called Ateliers de Penha. And we are also facing a little bit of like how to adapt and adjust also our space. It's meant to be shared, so it's yeah, it's we
Yeah,
are facing more or less the
yeah, it's
same
nice to
problem.
have a shared space because oh,
But here,
it's nice to have shared spaces also with other people from other
hmm
professions and other cultural, let's say, background.
hmm
And it started long ago. And we all, well, with some people that are still here in the co-working, we did really also all the works to
hmm
renovate the area
the
because it was
space.
full of glue and paint, and so it's
Okay,
yeah. So now we
so
will
let's
renovate.
let's start from the beginning. From what I know, and I'm probably wrong. First, horizontale means horizontal in
Yes.
Italian, uh, and it was a collective that was born in like after university or in university more or less. As Albert from Basurama said like 2 weeks ago, it was of a group of bored architects that somehow didn't connect with what they were facing as a traditional architect that came up with this. So two
Yeah.
questions: why the name, and more or less like just a short version of how did you start it? And second question, it was like this or more or less? Tell me a bit
Yeah, it
about.
was actually, yes, it was like this. Everything started in 2010, and we all still were students at University of Architecture of Roma. And in the beginning, there were Juan and Jacopo debating making an exam, actually, and coming up with an idea of starting a debate between students of architecture
Okay.
and then many people joined in. Our collective changed a lot from the beginning. I think it's kind of similar also to what happened to other collective. I think we have somehow touching points and connections of how we came out as collectives, and some differences. And Orizzontale, because it's each one of us, I mean, we have each one of us, even though we are all architects, have our ideas and opinions, and each one of us could give you
a different story
for the name. The interpretation of Orizzontale is being horizontal, meaning not the verticality of a structure inside of the team, so meaning of how we take decisions, and also the matter of our research, which is a public space, and so also how we address the theme of public space as a complex and democratic area in which to experiment. And we started because during our academic journey, all of the people that joined Orizzontale were feeling that something was missing in our, and also in the storytelling on how to start working in the field of architecture. You know, all the teachers or professors like, yeah, you are going to an office. What you're studying now maybe won't be useful later, and sometimes it happened because you were facing many design workshops that were more on making the design theoretically and on paper, and not in really like
practical
on a practical way and building stuffs. And also because sometimes when you also did some workshop and laboratories in the university, you always made buildings. You were meant to build buildings,
museums, and these really
or you were looking at the city really far away, so from a big scale. So always you were a bird, or either you were, I don't know, someone drawing.
Yes.
And so also we all had our personal experiences in Italy and abroad, professionally speaking, or doing researches on our on the field of architecture, but on the theme of the city. And we were all leaving the city. Roma, it's also was the place, the city in which we started experimenting stuffs.
It's a nice place to start to experiment stuff. No, it's a nice city to do that.
It's so imperfect in a way. I mean, there is a lot of history, monuments, and so on.
There's a lot of layers, no? It's there's a lot of things. It's
exactly, and you see an old aqueduct with maybe some houses within it, or there is also.
It was somehow like an inspiration itself, like the city that you were living by the time, no?
Yes,
like Rome, as you're saying.
Yes, because it's a city full of spaces, full of not in progress working sites, which sometimes are in progress for a long time.
From what I know, it's a little bit like Italy, and the southern countries are always like on work. It's like there's always construction and stuff. It looks
exactly.
Like they are always being built like non-stop somehow. Yes.
Yeah, but it built in a way that also the building, the new building becomes a ruin in a way. So I don't know. There's passion goes on, and yeah, but it was interesting because all of us were leaving the street, leaving the squares, and facing. The consequences of urban were made in a certain way on a top-down level, and but we were also watching past Italian practices, or foreign Italian practices, some practices from the 70s and the 80s, and others practices such as Collective Exist, Ramlabo, and so it was inspiring to, to have also the courage to start something by our own and ourselves. And so yeah, we first were a lot of.
Do you feel that? Yeah. Do you feel that like the like somehow like you work a lot in the public space, like you were saying, and somehow you do a lot like of these activation installations on public spaces, that the majority of them are more like a temporary intervention, and do you or like a pop-up project or something like this, and do you feel that like the good part of being a temporary thing, it's actually like you said before, it's somehow like a nice way of experiment the city and test things somehow, also because it also helps a lot with bureaucracy and these kind of things. So like how do you see this? I mean, from this thing of like what's temporary and what's not, what's more permanent, in a way, because we are talking about cities, of course nothing is permanent, but yeah, but there are like long-lasting things. Do you see, for instance, like and I know that you are now working on more permanent projects as well, and do you see that somehow you can cross this, like that you can like use some of the tools of experiment and like adaptation over time that you do with temporary structures, you can also work also in more like long-lasting, and let's say interventions, no?
Yes, absolutely. You're speaking about Aprilia, I mean, and that was a big challenge for us. It started as a competition made by MIBAC, that was the Ministry of Culture. So there were different sites on which work, and we decided to choose Aprilia because it was close to Roma, southern Roma, and also because the area was an empty hall. It's called the Hall of Toscany neighborhood, which is a neighborhood. It's a really, let's say, poor neighborhood. There is a lot of social stress because there were there was the complexity of this was a big plan from the 70s, 80s, more or less, and it was this big popular plan of making residencies for low budgets for people, but then they didn't use the mixing. They didn't mix the social layers, but they put also from Roma. Roma city owns some part of the apartments that so face.
They segregated some way.
They segregated the scraps of society. I'm sorry to use this word because I really don't like it in terms of about humans.
I think that everybody knows what you mean. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and so it's a complex situation, and but it was also really challenging because in the general view of the citizenship and inhabitants, that was the whole, and that was the square that was meant to be a public space of the former urban planning, never completed because of issues between the administration and the company that was making the public works. So then we decided to have this challenge and to try to cross an aspect that we already knew quite well, that was the temporary tool, and at the same time to try to work also on the infrastructure, so on the level of the more permanent, let's say, space.
Okay.
And what we learned about that is that the two things can, of course, work together, because any space on which we have done a temporary project are in, let's say, permanent sites. Okay.
Yeah, of course.
One of the biggest question mark that we had was how to design something that can thinking about the unpredictable needs and possible uses that people could just start to having in a space of the city.
Mm-hmm.
So also how to leave space for people to own the area and to build their own spaces also.
Do you think that somehow is like an alternative of the idea of like when an architect is designing a square, let's say, he's actually designing a square mostly taking in consideration what's the actual context that he is like designing, and which are the issues and the problem of that space, and what you're saying is, could it be like more in this perspective that this design will be somehow temporary, because to be permanent you actually have to be able to keep adapting or keep changing somehow
exactly
to be permanent actually. So
yeah, exactly. The thing is how to keep the fact that with temporary structures you can always think about going back if something doesn't work, or if it's in the time you do it, then after a while maybe it's not responding to social needs, then the space to be really, let's say, permanent maybe should be adaptive to the needs of the society, and also giving freedom to people and the neighborhoods to leave the space and also to change it and to make programs in it or to use it spontaneously. So that was the big question mark. And the other question mark of Aprilia, and it's still ongoing, so that's also interesting because
there's still a lot of question marks. Yes.
Exactly. But the thing was how to deal with a big building site and not closing a space for too long, how to deal with the transformation on the building site, and how to deal with the building site in that big neighborhood, and to start already working with all the people living in the district, but also the people living in Aprilia, how to activate their thoughts, or how to start triggering programs, or trying to also give them the possibility to express desires around that square. So right now we were in the middle of the pandemic, and we were about to start our experiments with temporary architecture together with groups of inhabitants and local associations. But then the building site had to stop because there weren't, in that moment we decided it was better to adjust also the building site for the new needs of the pandemic. And and also to ask ourselves how to go on with making workshops together with the people and inhabitants or students in a, let's say, in a safe way, because
I think it's very interesting that because it's like what you're talking about, like this adaptation that we are now facing. It's something that for us it's been quite strong in some projects as well, that they were like ongoing projects, and that they were depending on this presence on site, like to be there with people, building a temporary thing, or activating the space. And now we are facing the same, that we are facing like, okay, we have to keep doing this, but somehow we cannot do it exactly in the same way, so we have to come up with that. And one of the issues that we are facing is that, of course, there's a lot of things that you can pass to like digital and stuff, but there are other stuff that you cannot pass to digital, and also there's people that cannot pass to digital. I mean, if you have a neighbor that have like 80 years old or 70 years old, is not going to be here doing a live on Instagram or voting or whatever. So how are you like planning, or what are your thoughts about this adaptation? Also on the team, I imagine that you are a lot in the Orizzontale. Like, what are the ideas that are coming up in your mind regarding the context now?
Well, actually, regarding that context, we face everything. There is a solution try to hack this situation and leave this transition of the pandemic. We don't know how much all this regulatory new bureaucracy will stay. I think, I'm sorry, I jump to this other theme, but here in Italy is like bureaucracy lasts more than spaces sometimes. So it's like the real permanent stuff is to have a strict and rigid bureaucracy. The thing is that we do want, of course, digital is helping, but to connect people, like we are talking right now, other people are watching us live, but I think we will go all burn out in front of the screens, and that's not just 80 or 70 years old people can't afford to be on a screen, but there are also I don't know, young people from big families that maybe have not so many digital.
They have to share one phone or one computer.
Share one computer. Now there is a big debate about school, for example, because school here will start in September, and we wanted to involve also, young students from the area within the workshops. So the thing will be only that we will need more space to do so, and in that square we have plenty of space. The WIN will go together with also with the municipality, if they will allow everything in terms of the general budget and the general objective. But we will go analog again, because it's we need and what I see is that in general all the people needs to go out and meet and to do also stuffs together, because we have been closed in our houses and we are every time teleworking digitally, but enough. So facing new rituals and try to build new tools together, I think, with the inhabitants, all the actors and characters involved within the process. Now it's in progress, so I cannot be really precise, but for sure we will go on with all the temporary experimentation, because also when we build the structures structures that don't last so much, the thing is that they are like black boxes of the plane. Like they have a lot of histories within, of people passing by, of architects, designer, artists that work together to do it. They have been used. They are imperfect and dirty.
They contain a lot of things. And also sometimes it's like and we also feel it in our project, and sometimes it's even like intend to be like that the temporary project actually it's there temporarily, like physically, but it actually lasts longer than the physical time, because sometimes like a project actually initiate after some other pop-up projects, or some, like, I don't know, a group of people from one place that after the project they actually continue together developing stuff. So I think that one of the big problems that we were facing these last years is that we look to architecture just as like a material, physical thing that's it. But actually, it have a lot more of layers that provoke stuff in the city and in our lives. I wanted to talk about something that we've been debating a lot lately, and I know that you also work. I mean, your projects, you collaborate a lot with like local associations, other professionals, other architects, other
Yes.
a lot of people. And the other day we were talking about like the collaboration and for instance, like when you watch citizenship now with this situation of COVID, people are actually collaborating between each other quite more, and we were thinking of like collaboration kind of against competition, but we are thinking like could be a collaboration could be like a tool that normally appears on crisis or when you have moments of lack of resources. Like for instance, when you don't have so much resources to do a project, you collaborate more. When you have a lot of resources, I think it's wrong, but you collaborate less.
Well,
Do
it's
you think that somehow this happened like this? And do you think that actually it should be a kind of an established way of working? Because it makes, especially when you are talking about like public space, for instance, you have to collaborate because it's, I mean, it involves so many different actors that it doesn't make sense to work in another way, no?
yeah.
And
Actually, it's an interesting question because, yeah, we are speaking about also the COVID pandemic as the big crisis.
mhm,
Yes, I don't want to say that it is not, but I think we were still living a crisis before. I think there are two main forces. Yes, of course, there are many examples of collaborations and cooperation
mhm,
projects. Like an example, here in Roma, in a various majority of districts, each one of them had multiple people and association and volunteers to get food to give it
mhm,
to people, to families in need. And that was really a chain of solidarity, which was really nice to see, even though people couldn't go out, engage political matters and the square protests or anyway life was
mhm.
and public space was imposed and
Yeah.
suspended. And I think that this is something that went on also before, and I think it's a kind of immunitary system to, I mean, a social, economical system that wants us to compete and to
Mhm,
be one better than the other. And if you have poor resources, and instead, it's really common to be competing of that few
mm,
resources somehow.
okay.
Anyway, I think that
But it's, I
society
mean,
architecture is so complex that you have both. You have the positive,
mhm,
let's say, you have cooperation, collaboration, and you also have competition. I don't like the word itself, competition, because it's not. It is to compete to
mhm,
humans or biological elements or plants or whatever. They seek the same objective, and one wins on the other. Okay,
mhm,
but at the same time, if we change maybe a little bit the perspective and we face competition in a way that's about the challenge, about to challenge yourself, then it also has a good effect. The problem is when you have to be in the market, and
yeah.
so you have to work, you have to do the practice.
I mean, if you are an architect, you know that competition. It's I mean, we are now now not working, but we are now somehow collaborating maybe with some people for the Portuguese architect border, and it's one of the things that we are actually addressing a little bit, like in a more strong way. It's this thing of the competition. Like it's very established that, I mean, you are taught to do so straight on the university. It's like straight competition to be like the big pop star of architects. I know it's really this thing like one win and 1,000 lose every day, and somehow, yeah, it also looks like from the government or municipality perspective, like a competition. It looks like it's like a fair way of creating a project, for instance. But in the end, it's actually, you are just losing like a lot of creativity, a lot of resources, a lot of time, of a lot of people, a lot of money to achieve one object or a building or whatever. Why do you think, like, especially in our professional, why it's like competition so much like a modus operandi of architects worldwide?
I think because, I mean, it's a complex question, and competition.
Well, it's questions to reflect on.
Yeah, it's really interesting because we also spoke a lot about competitions, and the fact that we didn't want to participate in any competition because of what you were saying, because it's you can be in a big stress, work tons, and maybe also the award that you doesn't all your time. At the same time, some competitions can be challenging, but I think that because architecture is a big market, there are a lot of money involved, and so as any other product, they want to sell the better trademark of the offices and to tell the successful story, and because also to have collaboration between, let's say, architects, but also between other professions, that's with diverse people, it takes more time than to say, okay, I pick this project and this design, because of course it's a matter of the easiest way is to choose one option, no? To have one solution for everything that you say it's the best and it fits the best to the theme of the competition. And also, you make me think. You make me think on the other side of the jury, that sometimes, like, they have to see tons and tons of projects, and how much time do they put into watching them, and to how much time do they spend to evaluate a design that maybe lasted for, I don't know, 3 months, 4 months, with a lot of people brainstorming on it, and you see it's really not doesn't pay that much. At the same time,
the other day I was watching a TED talk on some designer, because also, like, design world is actually also a lot of like competition to, like, it's the same level like in for architects. And he was saying that somehow, if you combine all the effort, all the creativity, and all the time that all the designers put to one competition, plus the jury and the money to promote the competition, if you put all together, you could just like create like a bunch, like a group of designers, in this case, share the price or all of this money and time for all of them, and in the end probably you'll get a better result. So you could, it's a little bit like when you're saying like you collaborate a lot with like local associations and like other professions for a specific project. It's actually what you gain from it. No, I mean, I know that it takes more time. Sometimes it's easier for us just to do a drawing and that's it, and you do it. But it takes more time to like involve people, to be like to respect like each other positions, and to mediate all of these, like sometimes just the work of mediate between all of the collaboration, it's like a nightmare.
Yeah.
But in a way, it's like what you gain from it. No, it's like in the end, you are actually with a better result.
Yeah, and also another fact is that, I mean, the culture, I think, around the pop star and the archistar,
Mm.
it's, I think, maybe a little bit changing, and also because, you know, I mean, architecture is vast, and it should need
And it should be
different
fast.
professions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and but there are many collectives, also young students that are, for example, forming in a more collective way, and not like, you know, the former way of the office with the firm and with the face on it.
Mm-hmm.
And but the thing is, I really think I may say something that may seem a bit rigid, but we live in a society that from school tells us that we
Yeah.
need to be competitive. So that reflects on any kind of subject of our life and careers, let's say, okay? But but I think that all the challenges that we will face as a society in the future, and I speak about political matters, about public space, about the digital new authority,
Mm-hmm.
let's say, new digital politics will make us collaborate and cooperate more, because the problems are so complex that we need to address
You need to grab somebody's hand to go with you to work on the solution. You cannot do it yourself,
Yeah,
no?
I mean, and the more you are polyphonic and the more people are involved, not saying all the same things. I even, well, I may seem also in this way rigid, but I don't even trust the participation in a way in which architects ask, I don't know, my grandmother to what is better for
Yeah, of
what
course. Yeah.
she wants under her house. She says, okay, I don't know, and answers with whatever she comes into mind.
Mm-hmm.
But it's more important because to understand in a way the history, the cultural background of the spaces and the groups of people that are involved in our projects, and to hear the history of the places, and to because give them so many aspects then to work on with the design and then with the building, that makes for sure more complex experiences afterwards, and not perfect, of course, because anything can be seen as completely clean and perfect, but
and somehow it feels like in the end it takes more stuff in it, you know. It's not like it's just not like just one thing. I know sometimes, like when we have these projects that they have a lot of people involved, a lot of collaboration, and then we are like writing a short text for our website or for an article or something like this, and somehow it looks like sometimes you cannot put like all the little things and all these little side stories and side effects and parallel projects that they all together do the project, because it's a lot of people, a lot of inputs, I would say.
Exactly, and I think also that, I mean, the nice part of working in this field is also to be surprised by the resources that can be invisible sometimes in some districts of the city or in some territories, but there are indeed huge resources to start with the design, and you can address problems that maybe you weren't thinking about. So we will go more toward collaboration, but also there will be a lot of competition. We need to face it. I mean, we could be split in two, but we as collectives have this opportunity to tell our stories and to tell our experiences, that things can be done in a more mutualistic approach rather than competitive. Competitive and just to get the bond to finish it.
Yes.
It's
and it's done. It's there, and do not touch it. Don't touch anything. Yeah. You talk about education? That it's really. I mean, it's one of the topics that it's coming up more on our talks here with our guests, like this thing about education, and I think it's also. I mean, it happened with you. You are sometimes you are tutoring in workshops. Sometimes you are promoting actually like a summer school or workshop or stuff that somehow integrate these educational, practical, informal practices. I don't know, and it somehow it's a part of the process in a lot of projects, and we feel it. We use it also a lot of times. I mean, we already talked about this, and do you feel that somehow these workshops and these moments of like informal architecture learning, they are becoming more and more present and important because somehow they are feeling for instance the hole that you felt when you were in a university, for instance. And also, I mean, for us it's happening that even the universities themselves are actually calling us to fill up this hole, because they are feeling it as well, and probably the students are feeling it as well. Do you feel it as well? And why do you do it? Why do you make it part of your practices as well?
Well, it's nice because we had the possibility to experience different types of tutoring and education with kids from the middle school to adults. And I think now, yes, we are invited by many universities. In the beginning, we were promoting workshops within our own university. And it's nice to have these experiences in which we all learn by doing it, because none of us has we have kind of experience. So you develop a raw methodology, but anyhow, it's imperfect every time. So, and it's nice to face to go and to do this education program with students. And many times these university programs are promoted by students, which is, I think, one of the best parts, because then means that students can address the themes their own, and they can propose. So it's not just a passive way getting what you can get from the university or teachers. It's always an exchange, that it's a mutual exchange, because we learned a lot by these workshop experiences, and we see it that it's really going anywhere. I mean, any university now, it's speaking about making stuffs in building the stuffs together. Sometimes I mean, there are content within. Other times it's copying other methodologies, but it's I mean, it's okay. It means that now the academy world is watching at this situation as useful to teach and to learn new tools and new methodologies to make architecture. That it's not just being in front of a laptop designing things, but it's also
to be more,
and also trying to work with material and it's also understanding the places in which you are making maybe the workshop, that can be also the university you are in. So, and we didn't have, I mean, we didn't follow the career of being teachers at all. So it's for us also.
I think it's also the good part of it. I mean, we feel it as well, like you were saying that, and we say it a lot, that these moments, like when we are tutoring or being part of like a tutoring team or something like this, we actually we learn and we take a lot from it, like professionally, because I think it's also like when you put like a student that doesn't have any, or it shouldn't have any limits. Sometimes it just come up with an idea or with a proposition that you already, with your professional experience, you are not going to put yourself there, but he's going to put yourself there, and actually you take a lot from it. I think. I mean, we say it a lot of times, and it looks like these, you know, just like a fancy thing to say, but it's actually true, because I mean, they're always taking out us from the comfortable
From the comfort zone.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, it's true.
So I
And
think
also you need to be clear when you speak,
Mhm.
which is something completely, but I try to experience, and it's the other thing that it's for us nice to see is that many collectives started from this experience, making their own path from the workshop experience. So, and also the fact that maybe in university we can also address other topics that are not maybe within the planning, and we can think about, I mean, the economical system when we have the lunch break together,
Yeah.
and we can speak about whatever. And that's also the most important part of the tutoring, but also when we work, is when you have that convivial moment in which you have lunch together, and then maybe you have the coffee together and you speak informally. Know if there will be developed another void within our methodology. I think we will have a void in our experience as collectives.
Yeah.
Other students will feel.
Yeah, hope so. I hope so.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, they will feel with their own path, and they will say, because they were the collective establishment saying these stuffs, but there is this void. I want to address this topic. So yeah, I
definitely.
think.
Do you like? I think that we are almost running out of time. So I really like to get your opinion also on the political role of you as an architect or as a designer or something like that, as Orizzontale. I mean, you work a lot like in the social centers, like the Centri Sociali.
Sociali, yes.
Sociali. You collaborate a lot with these people. You support. I mean, there's this project that sometimes we just mix a lot of the legal and almost illegal stuff, and in another way, you are an architect, so you are also you are a technician. You know that you have rules and and they are quite restrict. And I mean, we feel that, especially in collectives, it's in our DNA that you have a lot of this political criticism against some of these things. But which are the limits of this small breaking the limits things that we actually do? Because sometimes you are, I mean, I don't know about you, but we do a lot of stuff that we are not supposed to do if you look like to the legality, but in the end, I mean, they make sense for everybody, and they are there, they work, and they are more positive than negative. So, but it should be a limit, no? Because otherwise, then it would be totally anarchy. So
I think there is a limit when you find then conflicts, which is cool. When you say you do something that is wrong and then someone tells you that's not the thing that you have to do, there is a limit in which you can see if you are effectively doing something that is really going out of the border or the regulation. But again, regulation is rigid and strict, but it's not because it's a way to simplify the problem and to say, okay, it's better not to do so and to do it in this way, which is sometimes there doesn't fit to reality, to the reality that someone faces. And we did plenty of these times. We have fit in the regulations, but many times we have also broken the regulations, because rules exist, but they should also be read critically by professionals in the limit of which you are not, I don't know, hurting someone else in a sense of stealing something to someone or whatever, but to have a balance on in the design approach, and to also to understand the situation in which you are in. And like, for example, I give you a practical example. We have did plenty of projects in an area that's really nearby our office. And if you want to do something in public space and you want to follow all the regulations, that you just say, okay, I don't do it. I go away. But we should start addressing our rules and regulations as architects, as political architects, as citizens and inhabitants, artists, or whatever, because that is also temporary, because that should be also something that comes out of social negotiation and social habits. It's more complex than just saying, now in Rome, for example, regulation is used not to do things, okay? Because it's a matter of responsibility. So if some private person takes responsibility, then it's fine.
It's okay, yeah, of course. Yeah.
Then if a local administration has to take responsibility, then it's, yeah, you go crazy with that. And sometimes it's interesting to be in this in-between and really difficult balance between being in the rules and breaking them, because you cannot follow them all. I'm not saying now break all the rules, but in public space there are so much regulation that then if
it makes it impossible to actually, I mean, for instance, like experimentation,
saying that public space shouldn't exist. Why? Public space is nice because it's diverse, it has conflicts, it also has this contrast, and also, I mean, because it's complex, and it's complex, but we are following regulations that are maybe older than the problems that we are facing.
Yeah, I think it's also a thing, especially when you are regarding like public space or like city design or design or whatever. I think it's also that the legislation or the rules or whatever you want to call it, they take too much time to update themselves. So they are always somehow out of date. It's like they are always like running behind the actual what's happening on the cities, for instance. And you're saying, like, for instance, public space, we feel that, especially now, I mean, for instance, if you are designing a playground on for kids on public space, I mean, it's almost impossible to do it like in a collaboration open design with the local neighbor or association. It's almost impossible to do it because you need like to follow like these industrial rules that actually makes like the interesting part of the process of involving people on doing what they are going to actually use makes it impossible. And I think there's this space for experimentation
Yeah, but you know, there was this side story of this square in Perestrello that was okay. That there was all this problem of okay, the kids, but you know, it's difficult. Maybe they can get hurt. It's safety because now, I mean, the word of 2000 and well, I mean, the word of the past 5 years, 10 years is security and safety.
Yeah, it's
Being
safety.
safe. Yeah, exactly. And
We have
so
50 seconds. Sorry.
50
Just to
seconds,
tell.
Monica.
Yeah.
Thanks for the GIF. Grande Monica per la GIF. And thank you so much. I think I spoke a lot and
No,
it was
it
really
was
nice.
amazing. I kept with this conversation for 1 hour more, but
Okay.
now we have 30 seconds. Sorry to interrupt you, but this is going to cut. So
No, it's okay.
I think that we need to